Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our admins. It comes from a translation of the message that was forwarded to her. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my own story as anonymous? I am a South African woman, and whenever I think about my story, the story of my life, I find myself laughing at myself. But the problem that I have been facing lately is that I do not get drunk anymore. Maybe it is because I am now a full-time alcoholic. So I started drinking a lot of alcohol. This was after I had found out that the guy that I was dating, the love of my life, the man that I thought loved me, the man that I pulled out of poverty, loved me with all of his heart. When I found out that he had impregnated my daughter, even up until this day, they are still staying together, and it pains me a lot. Whenever I think about him, the things that we used to do for each other in bed, it really drives me mad. But I know that there is nothing that I can do spiritually to harm him, because this man, where he comes from, I have been there. I went to him at the time when our relationship was still great, by the time when my husband was still alive. So when I think of all the crazy things that I did for this man, lifting him out of poverty, and at the end of the day, finding out that the pregnancy that my daughter was carrying, it actually belonged to my boyfriend, I just laugh at myself, and I just say, what were you thinking, woman? These are the consequences of cheating on your husband when you are a married woman. So my husband passed away. This was in the year 2013. I am so scared of the number 13, and I just feel as if it gives me a lot of bad luck, because that is when my husband passed away. So when my husband passed away, I was the one that was going to benefit everything, my husband's company as well as his life assurance. Oh yes, when it came out, it was a lot of money. So my husband had wrote his will, and he had said that if he was the one that was going to die, then everything was supposed to be given to me, so that we'll be able to take care of the kids that we had together. So the way that I started to date this man, the man was working for my husband. So my husband, he was into these tender businesses. We are still running our business, getting some tenders, but we have since moved away from building those RDPs. We are now doing something else. But when my husband was still alive, he was heavily involved in building RDPs as well as government schools and government clinics. So my husband, he then hired this man who was from Zim, but what we didn't know was that this man was actually a traditional healer. When he came here to South Africa, this was his primary duty that he wanted to do here in South Africa, to become a traditional healer. But since he was unable to get into the market, that was when he decided to try his luck in the construction company. Then one day, when my husband went to pick up some guys at the robot, because at that time he wanted to build as many RDPs as possible, so he went and he quickly got some guys from Zim who were looking for a job at the robot. He just picked them up, and amongst those guys that he picked up with his big truck, there was that guy who was a traditional healer. He then took them to this other village where we were doing our project there. Then they started to dig up the foundation. Those guys, they were working. Within 2 days, my husband, he called me and he told me that they had already dug up the foundation and they were already waiting to get started with the building project. And to me and my husband, this meant money. Your cheap labor meant maximum profits. So my husband then decided that it was far much better for him to lay off some of the local workers, your South Africans, because they demanded higher rates. And these guys, they were just accepting whatever that we were offering them. So since I was the one who was responsible with the payments and stuff like that, what we will do is that when it was time for these guys to get paid, we will go to the bank, then we will go and withdraw Then on the day that we were supposed to give them the money, me and my husband and some guys who worked for me as my security guards, then they would accompany me. Then I would go and pay these guys. Then there was this other day when we went there, and when we were busy paying this guy, that was when all of a sudden I looked at that guy whom I ended up dating. I truly do not know what happened. Even until this day, I don't know what happened. When we were still dating each other, I used to ask him so many questions like, did you not use your charms on me? But he honestly said that I will never use my charms on you because I love you a lot. It was just natural love. But what I felt on that day was that this man, when I called out his name, that was when I felt my heart really banging against my chest. I did not feel only that. I felt as if there was someone, a man that was busy touching me, rubbing my breast, and it really felt so wonderful. I kept on looking at that guy, and he kept on looking at me, and we smiled at each other. So each and every time, whenever I would get an opportunity, I would travel just pretending as if I am going to check on the project, but I would just want to see that guy. And each and every time when I would pass through the place where they will be building the RDP house, he would always be excited. It then happened that my husband had to fly out of the country. Whilst he was out of the country, that was when I grabbed that opportunity. I purposefully went there with a bakkie and a trailer, and I then pretended as if I had forgotten to bring some cement. So I then picked up two guys. So since this bakkie that I had, it could only fit one person in front, I told that guy that I was lusting after to come and sit in front. Then the other guy, I told him to sit at the back. We drove back to the place where we used to keep our building materials. Then these guys, they started to load the cement. I then went into this other office and I pretended as if I was just looking for some invoices. I then called that guy whom I later started dating into the office, and I just asked for his numbers as if I wanted to hear the progress, and he gave me his number and he was on WhatsApp. Later on, I just said hi. This man, he really had the nerves of steel. He said, "Hi babe, how are you?" And I just laughed at him and I said, "You are going to get yourself fired." But he kept on joking with me until he told me that he had fallen in love with me, and I had also fallen in love with him. I drove through the night and I went and I picked him up, and I told him never to reveal the fact that we were actually having an affair. We went and we slept somewhere else. Early in the morning, around 4 a.m., that was when I went and I dropped him back at the place where he was staying with the other boys. This is how we started dating. So we kept on dating until I realized that I had fallen pregnant. As for my husband, he was suffering from erectile dysfunction, and sometimes we could go for many months without making love to each other. And the moment that I fell pregnant for this boyfriend of mine, I knew that if I tried to keep this pregnancy as much as I wanted to keep it, then it was going to bring me problems. So I aborted the baby, and he said that this made him to feel really sad. So when he found out that I had aborted his baby, that was when he started to whisper dangerous words into my ears. Each and every time when he will be on top of me doing those nice things to me, then he will start to whisper those dangerous words and ideas into my ears, and I listened, because there is nothing that will make any woman do. And I listened because of the way that he used to please me. He started to tell me that I should picture myself living with him, my husband no longer in this world. And I kept on listening and listening to him, and until I started to see my husband as someone that was more like a stumbling block. He was actually blocking me from living my best life. And whenever my husband would try to come on top of me, trying to make love to me, this would make me to hate him even more, because I would say, this man, he is wasting my time. And when I would go to that Zim guy, he used to give me even up to 6 rounds a night. So then I devised a plan. I spoke with this guy and I said, is it possible if we can get some guys from Zim that can actually shoot my husband, for I do not want him to be alive. But the only problem that I had was that if my husband was going to get murdered, I was going to be the first suspect, since I was the one who was going to benefit a lot from my husband's death. So trying to find a hitman, that was not what I wanted. So the scenario was that maybe my husband was going to have a false hijacking, like some guys would pretend as if they would have hijacked his car, then they would just shoot him. This is what I had in mind, but I was not that much brave to go ahead with that plan. That guy saw that I was not that courageous to go ahead with the plan. He then invited me to Zim. I still remember the trip that we took, and we went to Zim. This guy, he was young. He was much younger than I was. But I went there and I played Makoti, and I actually acted as if I was his wife, even though I was way older than some of his sisters. The strange part about this was that the family knew that I was a married woman. The family knew that my husband was a rich man, and the day, on the night that the rituals to kill my husband were done, my mother-in-law, she was there, and she was actually watching and even assisting that other traditional healer. I am pretty sure that she is the one who actually came up with this idea. So the way that I killed my own husband, there was this other small doll that they made out of this clay soil. And this small doll, it was placed in front of me after they had made me to sit on this other reed mat, cross-legged. They placed that doll in front of me. Then I was given a needle and a knife, and I was told that I had to use any of those tools that were given to me to kill my own husband, either the needle. If I was going to stab my husband in the head with the needle, then he was going to die suffering from a terrible headache. If I was going to stab him in the heart, then he was going to have a heart attack. Then the choice was mine. If I wanted to use the knife, I had to cut any piece of his body part. And the way that he was going to die was that he would be involved in a car accident and he was going to die on the spot. Or if I wanted, I could actually cut off his manhood. My brother, I don't know what exactly what was going on at that time, because I just took that knife and I then started to look at that small clay doll that they had placed in front of me. I looked at the manhood, because when they were busy making this clay doll, they actually had placed a manhood on that clay doll that they had built for me, representing my husband, whom I had left in South Africa. So I just looked at the manhood and I said, since my husband has always had a problem of erectile dysfunction, how about if I just use his problem so that when he starts to get sick, he would never be suspicious? So that is what I did. I then took the knife and then I started to chop off his private part. I chopped off his private part as well as his testicles. That is what I did. After I had done everything, then they gave me this other small plastic and they told me that I had to go into the other room. I then went into the other room. When I went in there, I was told to bath myself with these other charms, and whilst I was bathing, those items that I had cut off from that clay doll, they were actually in there in that bucket that was full of the charms, and I was told that it had been done. So me and my boyfriend, we then returned back to South Africa, and when we returned back, my husband got so sick. The way that he got so sick, within a couple of months, my husband was bedridden. He was unable to walk. He was unable to do anything. Then we were told that my husband's prostate cancer had actually developed, and he just had a few weeks to live. And within a week, my husband had passed away. When my husband passed away, his manhood, you could not look at his manhood twice because of the way that it was so swollen that it was really horrific. as if it was something that came out of a horror movie. That is how my husband passed away. When my husband passed away, his sickness had been going on for many years. So his elder brothers, they knew about his erectile dysfunction. They just said, this is what God has chosen. Then they assisted me, and everything that belonged to my husband, it virtually became mine. And I started to control my husband's wealth and his companies that he left behind for me and the kids. And I never knew that what he would be doing is that after making love to me, when he would have made sure that I was too tired to wake up, then he would sneak out of the bedroom. I was sleeping with him on my husband's bed. Then he would go and finish it off with my daughter. My daughter fell pregnant. I asked my daughter, who is the father of the baby that you are carrying? She could not tell me anything. Only after we had a big fight when she had moved out, when she was staying at her own apartment, she then texted me. That is how I got to know about their relationship. She said, you are too old, he's mine now. Then I called her and I started to cry. When I called my ex-boyfriend, he then said that he is too young. He also wants to have children. And I said, but we were still going to have a lot of kids. I was willing, my brother, to have at least 2 kids I was willing to give him at least 2 kids. And he said when. And when he said when, I could not understand. He started staying with this guy 2 months after we had buried my husband. So I thought that it was too soon for me and him to start again having unprotected intercourse. And I was also on a family planning because I just wanted to mourn for my husband. But in those two months that we had started staying together, he said that he was too tired. He just wanted to have a child like now. I begged him and I said, please return back to me. I'll give you the child that you want. He returned one day, and when we were busy making love, that is what hurts me the most. I had accepted him back, but he said, no, I can't do this anymore. And I said, why? And he said, I do not have any feelings for you anymore. I have feelings for your daughter. Just like that, he got up from where he was on top of me. He dressed up and he walked out of my bedroom. And there was nothing that I could do about it because of the things that I saw his parents doing. They make me to be very much afraid of this guy. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear sister. Strange things do happen in this world.